Hear that sound? That's the future knocking on your door.
Yeah. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Your webcam's not on, buddy. Okay, so that's a bug that happens when I refuse to remember something, but it's all good now. Oh, Gooned Out is here. Jesus. Lex, do you want to join? Here, I'll invite him if he wants to join. Okay, we've got Mr. Gooned Out. Hello. Hey, Lex. Okay. So we picked the weirdest week to go on hiatus, for the record. The weirdest 2 weeks, in fact. I'm assuming the Goon Master has been paying attention to everything with OpenAI.
I up you this. UK United Kingdom specialty Purdy's.
HEB brand diet soda. Because
it's been blurred out.
Yeah, there's copyright laws. EU copyright laws are still applying apparently post Brexit.
What did you guys talk about in the last few?
Well, we've been on a 2-week hiatus, so we haven't really talked about this at all. All the recent happenings. So
yeah, the ousting.
He's in, he's out. When I thought I was out, they dragged me back in.
My favorite meme from it was the OpenAI board throwing him out, and it's the meme of the
Simpsons.
Yeah, the Simpsons meme with they throw Barney out of the bar, and then he just ends up back in the bar, and that's what happened. That's the entire summary of what happened from a high level view. As far as what really happened, we still have no clue.
I don't think we're gonna know. I don't think they're gonna say anything. I think whatever happened was important enough that they didn't say anything about it, right? And so I've had this conversation with a lot of people. This was not a bad boy, bad behavior sort of. We're letting you go, naughty. Because in those cases, it's very easy to just go to the general public and say, look, he did X, Y, and Z. That's inappropriate. Our CEO shouldn't behave in that way, right? But they have meandered and danced around and do. They have done every single thing they can except for describe what happened. They've done everything besides that, which to me says it's something that's important. If it was not important, then they would just admit it immediately. They'd be like, oh, he just punched an employee in the face. Bang, hey, no one's going to argue with the board if they're like, he just randomly decided to attack an employee. But this proves to me that it was something that is relevant to the product, right? It's important. And because it was done in a very rushed way, this was not something that clearly had been thought out for a long time. It
definitely happened out of nowhere, and it was directly after the whole presentation that they had of the GPTs and 128K context, like all sorts of stuff like that we haven't even talked about this on the podcast because we missed it as far as like the news cycle goes. And it's like all of this comes out at one time. There's a big presentation. Everyone's rallied behind. There's a bunch of stuff over their dev day that they've released. And it's mainly stuff to do with developers in the background. They release really good tool sets for what they do. And then they just kick out the main guy 7 days later.
Yeah. And that's why to me this is clearly something. Somebody saw something happened in a panic. There was panic, there was fear, and then there was rash decisions. But whatever it wasn't so important that it's not so fundamentally important that they couldn't backtrack, because they've clearly backtracked. So obviously the longevity of the company outweighs whatever it is that occurred, because they wouldn't have put him back on. I think the reason they put him back on is...
In theory, the board more or less has like no obligation to they don't have like a. They're like a regulatory board that's like mission was like to be safe, right, with AI. So they even said that like down to dissolving the company, if that was what was necessary, that's within their like guideline and mission statement, more or less. I'm paraphrasing.
Well, they said the
obviously,
destruction of the company would be in alignment with that mission statement, didn't they?
there you go. That's the wording. But yeah, the point I'm making is that this group, they don't necessarily have stake in it, but then there was conspiracy that one of the people on the board, D'Angelo, had he's the CEO of Poe, I believe, which is in conjunction or in partnership or child company to Quora, and they had their own AI that they were working on, where it was basically their own GPTs thing, where it was custom agents that you could design and stuff. And there was all sorts of theories that, like, at the time, basically the release of that was a surprise to him, so he more or less gets pissed. He convinces everyone to quit, but then you also have to convince all the other board members and Ilya.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work, because why would Ilya? How are you
Gotta be
convincing
something
him?
that everyone. It can't be something personal to an individual board member, or even one or two.
Yeah, so that bit doesn't make sense. So it's like it's got to be something else.
There's
Ilya,
no financial thing. Me personally, there's no fiscal reason.
well, also Ilya,
alternate interest.
Ilya on Twitter said that he regretted what he did and yada yada. Basically, there's some remorse in his panic to like push over that vote to kick him off, basically, from the board.
Which proves there's panic.
Yeah. So,
Well,
And that to me proves it wasn't done out of anger. They're not angry at Sam
go ahead. Lex.
necessarily.
the tweet could have been also that like he got put in a vulnerable position, so publicly that he put that out. Not that it was like I personally I don't think it was a genuine felt thing. I think he maybe things like inversed and he like maybe like he was put in a vulnerable position, so it was probably his best intention to put something out.
I think the sentiment of the tweet was something to the degree of like, I didn't want to destroy OpenAI while doing this, basically, because he was one of the people that voted against it. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what his motivations were. So now it's down to the forever memes of what did Ilya see, and then now we have this document that everyone's like throwing around with redacted parts of it, which is kind of funny. It either is a real thing, so to like kind of put this into like the descriptor for the episode here, there is a supposed leaked document that is describing an extremely powerful agent based on this whole Q, which great, another thing that we have to hear about on the internet for the next however many months about Q, right?
Oh my God.
I can't wait.
Qualia, Q.
Yeah. So Q-Star as a potential project is underneath the OpenAI board, but then it goes into all sorts of stuff like basically having a team of researchers that were trying to achieve GPT-4 being able to do math, right? And this is a big thing. So you need special algorithms to do this with language models. And we don't know quite how to do that yet. So if there is an algorithm that can change the way this language model interacts, you find a way to basically achieve math and other logical things, things to do with higher level logic. So basically the theory is that there's this Q-Star project or something to that effect, whatever its name is. I don't know why they keep saying Q-Star in particular. The only thing I could think of is that there's a big like meme of the algorithm itself for this particular thing that comes out of a paper that's a bit more, I don't know when the paper came out, but it's basically describing this particular method of machine learning, right? And it's Q times whatever. So it's Q asterisk. So that's where Q-Star comes from. It's the start of the algorithm. And, you know, programmers love naming shit weird, funny things that have to do with something that they're doing. So it would make sense. Yeah, Grok is, we covered that last episode. So yeah, it's like programmers just love naming. Basically, it fits narrative wise that they would name it Q-Star. It just makes sense. So the point is that now we have this leaked document that's basically from either 4chan or Reddit. Also, you got to stop bouncing your desk, by the way. You look like you're in an earthquake over there. But anyways,
no, my bad.
That's making me dizzy. But anyways, there's these leaked documents where it's just one document where it's basically claiming this thing can more or less do like perfect math and even invent novel math to break encryption. 128 or 192-bit encryption, something to that effect. Basically, you feed it a ton of inputs and outputs of the data you're encrypting and then the encrypted output, right? And you give it a fuck ton of those. And then with this new algorithm, it was able to learn how to create a novel form of like math that we haven't apparently done before that can very accurately get the output of the actual encryption. So it undoes the encryption basically. It looks at the input or it looks at the output and then reverse engineers it with a simple algorithm apparently, as far as it's a trivial thing that could be done in maybe a day or minutes. Who knows? They don't really mention how fast it would be within the leaked document. But again, it reads like a SCP documentation when most people are very role play about like putting redacted parts of the government documents and stuff like that. I don't know if one of you guys wants to explain SCP, but it's hard to tell whether or not this thing's real. Because if it is real, it's fucking big news. It's gigantic.
Yeah, massive.
You have the blueprint for AGI. If you have something that can no longer... You have something that's no longer dependent on just predicting the next token. It has methods to predict the next token much more efficiently. So that makes it cheaper, makes it smarter, you name it. Putting that sheet into ChatGPT said it's filled with incomprehensible techno garble. Yeah, that probably also is the case, which makes me think it's like someone who's fucking around, who's also a side thing. Is what they do is they write things for SCP, which is basically a large internet culture of people that make up random, basically classified documents and make up monsters and stuff that like this government organization is holding all these mutants, aliens, you name it, right? Or running really fucked up experiments. They, for fun, write up these documents that are completely fabricated, and it's just meant to look like government documents. And it's just something you do for a hobby. So you could totally see some guy who just loves doing that, just writing up your techno garble. And there you go. I could easily, probably, with just a few like descriptors, take GPT-4 at its current level. Maybe you would have to do a little bit of like soft breaking to get it to work with you on this, but you could make it create the fake document with you with techno garble. And there you go. Now you're laughing your ass off for your stupid 4chan post that you posted that got reposted on Reddit, and now everyone else
is freaking out.
Including David Shapiro. Obviously, he seems excited and scared.
Seems like a good time. You could develop some sort of model that just makes these documents. just for the fuck of it, and you start rolling out with slow volumes, and then after
God, you fine tune based on SCP documents and just create absolute hell universe. Is that what you do?
mostly redacted, but like
Yeah.
a little bit of a. So yeah, kind of like before in one of the previous episodes, we said something about. You remember you said like the smart people, they want to work on like more meaningful problems and not and they wouldn't make like bots that go into cities and just like cause mayhem for the most part.
Mhm.
Well, the horsepower of the people who can really create the programs that'll make these sort of documents maybe don't want to work on those things for the fuck of it. But
Yeah, maybe.
there's some strong overlap between this.
Yeah,
Cloud OS.
it's a. I don't know. Like, there's part of you that really wants it to be true because, like, if this is true, you got the base layer of
Big
AGI.
step forward.
More
And then
than
we have
likely,
to shift all of our time frames as well. All our internal time frames of when we hit this, when we hit that. That would, I think we'd be shifting by like a year, I would say.
yeah. If what would be outlined in that paper is possible, then AGI by 2025, maybe 2024, like late 2024 type thing. It would be that quick. Because something I wanted to mention. Now I don't remember the part names. Don't fucking shoot me over it. But effectively, there's like a H200, I believe, which is like twice as powerful, and then it has twice as much RAM, so that it can run higher level. It can run bigger models, right? And then obviously that'll help with training because of all sorts of things. And then there's something like the B100, which is a bigger cluster one that is another version that's coming. Basically, NVIDIA is already working on rolling out their new high-end stuff for AI compute in general. So the Azure Labs, the now XAI will also be getting those once they're in full production. You
Blast processing.
basically, we already have another doubling of compute with AI. What the fuck did he just say? What?
You don't remember that? You don't remember Sega
Say that again.
when they released? They said it was blast process or something like that. They used some term, some made up a bullshit term. Oh, what was it? Blast process? It was something like that. Oh, what was it? I think Sega made the term up.
I have no
I just
idea,
thought it was
but it's
relevant to
funny.
me. Yeah, it was hilarious. And people are like, "Is that real? Is that a real thing?" And they're like, "Oh, it's real. Yeah, it's a new way of processing. It's blast processing. Rocket RAM."
Okay, but is this like a LED lights make it go faster thing? We're
Yeah,
doing?
that's exactly what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what was it just saying? You completely derailed me with your blast processing. Do you remember what I was saying? He wasn't paying attention, was he? Do you remember?
You were talking about the GPUs being
yes. So
rolling out.
we have another fucking doubling of compute in hardware that we're producing, or well, they're going to be able to produce now. And then, dude, there's even weirder shit with like the NVIDIA, like NVIDIA also has AI helping them develop factory layouts. Right. So this is a thing that's been out for a while now, but effectively it can help them develop optimal factory layouts as well as online developing factory layouts. So that, you're talking about a company that they now have their highest revenue ever at 18 billion in the year, I believe, so far this year. And, yeah, so like the revenue goes skyrocketing from all this AI stuff. They need to plant as many factories down as possible to print these fucking chips, because not only is it the whole fucking the new gold, the new oil is data, the new gold is hardware, yada yada yada, all these terms that people are throwing around on Twitter or X, excuse me, but the point I'm making is that they now have the ability to very quickly lay these factories out, because it's not the same chipset or like setting with these big GPUs. It's not the same as a GPU that goes into your computer. These things are big 80-pound machines, basically. It's like its own big computer, obviously. And they need like novel manufacturing to lay these things out and to create a good workflow. And when they're planting these new factories down, which who knows where all they're being planted at this point, there's a lot of problems actually with American factories with like wildlife protection acts and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny, like the EPA, I believe, is like stifling our ability to locally create a ton of this chipset stuff. So that's why the whole Taiwan thing is a hot button issue. We need that. So anyways, meandering a bit, but we now have a doubling. We also probably have a doubling in factories and output. Every one that wants these GPUs is going to get them at a premium, obviously, but the production capacity is exploding along with compute doubling every year now, seemingly. And the reason it's going to double as well, really
Moore's
fast.
law continues.
It's not that it's just Moore's law, right? It's that it's a different type of computing that's more specialized to large language models. So there's a ton of headroom here to go with that these GPUs that they're building that are specialized for this can do. So you don't have to effectively, how to say, like, it's not like you have to come up
double the number of transistors on the chips. Like, this is a different architecture.
Yes, we're building a different architecture, so it's going faster. So it's really going to double every year. So this is like the craziest shit that it's the craziest like timeline we could have, is that there's a new novel chipset thing. We don't know what the ceiling is on it necessarily, and that's where we're at, and it's just doubling. And Grok, this is despite all of the amount of like GPUs coming into the space of any AI company right now. Like Inflection, they got 26,000 H100s that they're buying. They've got 5,000 so far. They keep coming in, right? Grok at XAI has said they will be doubling it every 2 to 3 months, their total compute. So the NVIDIA factories are on fire right now. Like if anyone who's played Factorio, right, you can picture it mentally in your head, what's going on over there. It's some crazy shit. It must be really fun to see those factories. I've played Diner Dash. But yeah, basically that's where we're at.
But I think what you mentioned real quick, I think what you mentioned about the having the AI do the layout, I think that's the areas that we don't necessarily think about when we're talking about rate of increase, because production in general is so based on old school. I mean, it hasn't been really changed since Henry Ford, right? Production for stuff. I mean, that's the last time we had a real innovation and revolution in production was with Henry Ford.
The factory.
And so I think
line.
AI, the factory line. And so like factory layouts and stuff like that. So even while humans are still integrated in it, AI is going to allow us to say, okay, you're putting this conduit in, or you're putting this factory in here. Here's the most efficient way to do it. Here's the most efficient way to build a building. I mean, it's going to be funny if it turns out that we've been making structures inefficiently this entire time, and I'm sure we have been.
We almost for sure, almost for sure.
And it's those little things. It's those little tiny things like that it will have such a massive compounding effect on the rate at which you have adoption and integration of all this technology.
Yeah, there's also like Elon talks a lot about like production inefficiencies, where like this is why the guy would sleep at the factory in Fremont and then even in Austin to some degree, is that you have a full production line, right? Everything's being built, but this part is slow. What's being so slow about this part? What's being slow about this part? And he explained all sorts of things. There was someone that explained like basically with the Raptor engines, there was these things where they were putting, I think, 6 bolts on something, right? And he's like, why don't you just put 4? Like, so that cuts down on the amount of bolts you need, the amount of drill points you need. It makes it efficient. Every little step you can take out of the manufacturing process and still get the same fucking thing, the better, right? So it's going to be the same thing with chip manufacturing in general. We already use AI to some degree for creating chip layouts as well. We've been doing that for like a decade, apparently. I looked into it a little bit. It's very base level machine learning stuff. I've actually personally worked with this. I worked with nesting software, simulated nesting software, which I used like a really rudimentary base level. What was this? It's like a algorithm that like mutates a bit just to test a ton of different like layouts, and then it chooses the most efficient layout. There you go. You've got your nest, and this would be for like laser cutting and stuff like that. Bit of a complicated thing to describe, but very old technology. But we've already been doing that for nesting out the actual chip, where all the transistors lay, where the basically all the cables, where the electric goes through, right? And we make the most efficient path, so why not do it with the factory? And factories have 1 billion and one inefficiencies, and there you go. Now you're printing them at max speed. Grok can double every 2 to 3 months, and buy these H100s. That's crazy, because every other giant AI company is buying a metric fuck ton of them. They must be producing like, north of 50,000 a month, maybe 100,000. I would like to actually get the numbers of how many H100s they're producing a month. I wonder if we could find that, but I don't know. Have you guys have any comments on that, by the way?
No comments on that specifically, but if we go back for a second to you're saying the factories are highly inefficient, and that's true. Even for buildings, like we'll be able to use these models to make them way better structurally and more efficient. Probably build them in the best way. Slightly unrelated, but in Japan, I think the subway system was actually designed by psilocybin. They like put it in a box or something, and then and they like mimicked the city. Like they made some micro model of the city, like physically, and they let like a psilocybin literally map out the whole thing, and that's what they actually built, supposedly. That's one of the things I posted in the.
Oh yeah,
chat
yeah. I've seen that where like they like the mushroom pores travel to the most efficient part of the maze, so they were using it with like layouts of the Tokyo traffic system and seeing what like the most efficient ways that the spores would do it, and then like you can change your like traffic around based off of that and get more efficient patterns. So it's kind of strange. Mushroom.
Well, it's kind of like an insight into like what the like models will design and compute could do. A biological version, I guess. Kind of an insight into the future.
I'm asking ChatGPT how many NVIDIA H100s are made per month. Okay, so for the year of this year, they have their total amount that they'll have shipped is 555,000 H100s in this year. That's a lot. XAI had 5,000 of them, and obviously has a ton more. So yeah.
So basically, as soon as they can make them, they're getting shipped out the door. As many as they can make.
Dude, they probably show up with their own fucking trucks, like whoever you're selling them to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like
As
that's
quickly
how
as they
in demand
can.
they are. Like as soon as the glue dries on the Nvidia logo, they're like, "Are you sure you have to put the Nvidia logo on it?" They're like, "We got to put it. It's important." It's like people don't give a fuck. They just
you
want
guys, you don't think that all the drama and controversy that has happened with OpenAI has really shifted any timelines? It's been like there's no ripple effect from this. It doesn't seem like there is.
I think it is because why else would Inflection tell everyone early that they have the second best large language model in the world that they trained? They're telling people before they release it. They're saying, "Hey, we did it. We made the second best in the world, and that'll be powering our. I think it's Pi is what it's called, right? Your personal intelligence. It's going to be powering it as soon as we can. It's out, and they only have I can't remember how many GPUs they trained it on, but they're still waiting on their full like shipments of H100s, I assume, or they're setting it up. It's a whole complicated process, by the way, to set these fucking massive server farms up because it's really complicated. It was actually interesting. XAI had a whole write up of how they did it, and a lot of people were surprised they use Rust as the language to keep all these systems together. Because basically, to explain this, Johnny, when you're training these models, right? It takes a fuck ton of compute. Sometimes these computers fail, right? So if you don't have robust systems for this to go immediately take over the load of this other one, you can cause a catastrophic collapse of the training of the model, and you effectively like it's like your hard drive stops. Your hard drive stops while you're unzipping a file, right? It's corrupted now. That's effectively what happens. So that would be, I've never been in the room while they do this, but that's as far as I've been described. That's what it is. And Rust is a really good programming language that a lot of people are pretty excited about, and it's being developed still. But it was able to help them along with a few other like languages that you use, obviously. It made it very like robust in that system to make it stable so that you can have like, you got your 5,000 here, but you got 1,000 sitting and waiting as a load bearing. Like shit, 3 of the fucking ones here went down, 2 of here went down. This one needs to just be rebooted. It offloads to the other ones so that they don't all crash. Right. So you got to have like these crazy robust systems while they're doing it. And then, this shit runs for 2 months straight. That's how long it took to train Grok. Right. That's 2 months of like hoping that computer system whole thing doesn't shut off. You probably got people there 24/7.
Monitoring.
It's insane. Yeah, I'm not a top engineer, but I do want to like mess with Rust a little bit, especially since ChatGPT has been updated with all the latest stuff, so it knows the latest stuff about Rust. So that's good. But yeah, so
yeah, either like C++, and Python's obviously more high level, but yeah, Rust is like right in there. That's like the one of the go-to C or Rust that a lot of the people working on hardware are heading to. Pretty good like tool set, community's growing. So
yeah. The other point here is that you've got all these GPUs going out every month. You got everyone buying them. We know that a ton of these companies that are buying these, by the way, aren't even foundation model companies. They're just buying them to run their own models. A startup I'd be working with soon. Not going to say a whole lot about it, but they're going to need their own GPUs for private models just because of the nature of the data they're working with. It has to be private. So you need to buy this big fucking GPU and you need to buy a few of them.
Or do you know what their budget would be for? No.
I don't know yet. So, but it's a thing basically. You need to either be able to privately host it. By the way, a lot of these are probably just going to NVIDIA themselves. They're just buying them. I didn't get through all of it, but I attended a conference, a virtual conference that NVIDIA did. It's hard to say, but basically NVIDIA is very much setting them up to be like the AWS of AI tools, right? That it was basically a sales pitch on like, come use our stuff. We have our models here you can use. Here's our AI tool sets, yada, yada, yada. They're keeping a ton of that compute for themselves to not only train their own models themselves, which is kind of funny, but also host their own models and host their own tool sets. So NVIDIA is very much trying to pivot to being in a software end of their whole setup. They want to be hosting this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of the you guys know George Haas. I think I talked about this before, but he has Tiny Corp now. They just raised I guess earlier this year they raised like $5 million, and they're making Tiny Grad first, which is I think like a less than a framework like basically like TensorFlow, but that'll always be under 5,000 lines of code. And they're focused on the hardware first, and then they will, and then eventually they're going to be a chip company. So a lot of the chip companies, they make the hardware, but their software is actually incredibly like lacking. Whereas they're focusing on making killer software first, and then they'll make chips. But yeah, they're making this tiny box, which is basically what you're saying. Either you can pay like $100 an hour to rent like some rig like remotely, or yeah, for 15,000 you can get a tiny box, which is basically this like rig you can like buy physically and have it shipped to you, and it's 15,000.
Are those production right now? Like you buy one?
Yeah, so you put a deposit down. It's like $100. I put the specs in the chat there, but I think I don't know if they've shipped them out yet, because they say specs subject to change. All pre-orders fully refundable until your tiny box ships. Price doesn't include shipping. Estimated timeline 2 to 6 months. So I don't know if they've shipped any. I don't think they have, but yeah, I mean it's several months out. So
that might come in time. It looks pretty good.
Yeah. No, I know. I think there's definitely a use for it, because a lot of companies are going to want to train their own models, and especially if you need private stuff, or even like it's not that much for like some company to have and be able to like not rent continuously somebody's remote rig. So you get the privacy, and you get, you're probably going to save probably quite a bit.
Yeah, the amount of like cost, like it's like I think the cheapest is like Lambda. A single H100 is like $2 an hour, right? And then you have, what's it called? You have a few others that, like, I think the company we'd be going with, whether it's like $5 an hour, right? It's expensive, but it's bigger and GPUs. But the point is you're renting these constantly, and if you have like customers using it at any ping point during the day, it needs to be up. That costs that extra inference or that extra compute to do that. You have to pay for that hour. There's another thing. You're not paying. It's not like a fires it up like an API type thing. No, you have to rent the actual server for that time, because it can't get interrupted by someone else doing stuff. I wonder if eventually they'll make it so that that's a thing, by the way. You know a lot more about lower level programming than I do. How likely is that, where like effectively it runs like an API where they just have a fuck ton of server load and it just distributes you across the system? Like, is that possible?
Yeah, I think it is, but there are, it's a bit tougher to say because your software is going to change. So yeah, I'm just trying to think of like how it would be possible. Like, I mean, technically it would be, whereas like you only pay for what you use, you're saying, but you're always online, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible, but I think because of the demand and because they're always like shipping in new, or they're always scaling their things. I don't think like they'd want to like spend all that time to cut down their profits a bit when there's clearly the demand for people that are willing to pay. So
That's fair.
it's possible though. So
But
they're probably
then-
going to do it eventually.
Another thing that would probably be like a pain in the ass is that like you have to like you with these fucking complicated, like every one of these, Johnny, that come in as the new thing has this whole little software stack that it needs to like deal with your shit now because it's new and it's a different chipset and how the RAM works and how this works and the VRAM and yada yada yada, right? And the memory and the hard drives on it, you name it, right? All these things within it need its own like software stack to run it with your model, and then you have to add your own code in to now make your model work off of that. And you know these companies have to do that, so they probably, you know, here's our H100s of this series, right? So these have this software stack that we had to modify to work with this, but once the H200s come out, now you have to do it again. So instead of having this sync of like mixed stuff where you could effectively charge it like an API, this would make it a lot cheaper, right? But they would make less money. But it would be good for, you know, companies that are doing this. But this is all great news for NVIDIA, by the way, because they just have to keep buying.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, basically you would have to do a fuck ton of software work to get this shit to automatically become just an API call for all this. So,
and yeah, it's not necessarily in the best interest of the people who are renting them out, essentially, because it's way more development time. It's, you know, somewhat complex, and like the complexity changes as you're progressing and you're changing your maybe architecture, and it just to reduce their profits essentially for now. So if the market demand is there, I don't see why they would do that. Yeah, although it would help a lot of people have access to it and make cool stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, the ultimate
Probably
part
eventually,
though is that the cost of compute is going to get significantly cheaper no matter what. Because, like, you know, once you get to the whatever the H500s are, right? Like, eventually you're only gonna they'll be able to like kind of you're renting this little piece of the H500, and then here's what it costs, and then the whole server they rent out is like, you know, something crazy, like they're profiting like a couple $100 an hour on each machine, and then, you know, how much were these machines? Do you know how much the H100 is now? I don't know what it was. I saw them being compared to NATO shells, which I thought was funny. The two most in demand item right now are NATO shells and fucking. Okay, yeah. They were saying that they cost. I think it costs like the NATO shells cost something like 2,000 to 4,000 to make until all the war shit started up again, with, you know, everything going on in the Middle East, and then obviously the previous thing that no one's talking about anymore, but with Zelensky, the whole Ukraine situation, right?
yeah. Who's that guy?
Yeah, I've never heard of him.
You what? Huh?
What? It's actually crazy how everyone's forgot about that. But the point is all the shelling,
Ukraine?
yeah, all the shelling going on in Ukraine, and now the Middle East, right, with the Hamas situation in Israel, really expensive. So the two most in demand items in the world are H100s and NATO shells. That's where we're at. Welcome to 2023, everybody.
Dude, their profits on those are pretty crazy too. Somebody estimates that Raymond James estimates that it costs around $3,300 to manufacture an H100 GPU, and they resell for 25 to 40 that we know of, because I don't know, maybe they have deals for companies, but still,
that's still a really large manufacturing cost, though.
3,300 for an H100. Yeah, well, also they can, if they're high margin, they can use the profits to like make their tooling better, make their products better. So this is like fuel in the fire for, or like this huge contrast for NVIDIA to get way better, and like basically nobody can compete.
Yeah, but
I think it's pretty good.
The last NVIDIA like presentation that I watched, what's CEO's name again? Do you know? I can't remember his name right now.
Not coming to me.
Yeah, his name escapes me. But the point is he showed that they're just Jesus. Anyways, I saw basically that what he said was that with the new like giant server cell thing that you can buy, right? It's you're spending more, but you're getting like, I think it was something crazy like 10 times the compute at like 200 times less power draw. So some, I don't have the numbers. I should go look for them. But the point is like with each new setup that you buy, even though you're paying a premium, the new compute is so much higher and cheaper to run than the last compute was. Cheaper in terms of power per compute. So NVIDIA charging these margins is completely logical. And when it comes to the type of level that we're playing at here with the large language models, completely reasonable for me to purchase that GPU even after market sale of like 40,000. That's completely reasonable. If you have, yeah, you know, you get the point. It's the weirdest time in history. Something that was it you, Lex, that was talking about it in the chat recently, where you talked about like he made the funny of crypto was a psyop to make it so that like we had mass GPU production so that we could create the AI revolution.
I think this is just some things like those documents that were put out. Maybe it's just some people typing up shit, but yeah, they're saying that basically crypto was going to happen anyway, but they made this like plan that to get a lot of people to mine for Bitcoin, so that GPU production just goes, so they can produce a fuck ton of GPUs, and then they can use that to run the like AGI models basically. So they get other people to produce. Well, I don't know the accuracy of this, but basically they get people to produce these GPUs. People would pay for them. So basically, they could fund making this developing these and the production capacity to do it, and then they'd be able to use it to basically make AGI or really sophisticated models. But also, then maybe we can iterate and say that they brainwashed people to play games so that they want buttery smooth graphics and also be the starting point for these.
All of this is all bullshit, right? This is all about me running Crysis at 4K. That's really all this comes down to. That's it.
I want to
all this AGI stuff, all this cryptocurrency stuff. None of it's real.
If what really matters is drop below 600 again on CS Counter-Strike 2, I will fucking puke. So NVIDIA needs to get their shit together.
I'll get nausea. I won't be able to handle it.
I won't be able to handle it. Can't stand it. We're working towards the 1,000 hertz monitors
on max settings.
We're working towards 1,000 hertz monitors, and I need to see at 1,000 hertz. Don't tell me what I can't see.
It was so funny. It was so funny because I used to play on my mother's HP laptop, play Minecraft on it, and it ran just like fine or whatever. And then like years later, that was like 2012 maybe. I was playing on the HP Pavilion laptop and it would just smoke and it was cooking, it was cooking playing Minecraft. And then I finally built my first gaming rig in like 20, maybe like, I think I probably played that on my mom's laptop in like 2009. I built my first gaming rig in like 2013. Yeah. And then I play it on the gaming rig and it's running at about the same performance. And I'm like, what the fuck? But because they had added so much. They had added so much in those couple of years. And I was like, oh, it's going to be buttery smooth. But they had just added so much to it at that point that it had the same fucking performance.
You know, the funny thing about like compute is that it's all to do with like the software bloat that we have. This is why I'm really fucking excited for really high context models with extreme attention, all that shit. Basically, refactor all the code. There's 1,000,000,001 software things that you use every day that's probably 1 to 10,000 times slower than it needs to be, and it's just because it didn't matter. Right, that there, and I swear to you, like these are the real numbers. It's like 10,000 times slower than it should be. In a lot of cases, on like random little software that you use, because it doesn't matter if it runs that fast. But you know, you make those gains across everything. Eventually, everything on your computer or any computer is instant. Your phone is all instant. There's nothing that loads. Right. So the general point that I'm making is that we're headed very close to like every bit of software gets optimized, right? Here's the thing. I believe that there have been people that have like more or less kind of proved this, but the silicone in a chip, unless you like horribly overclock and stuff like that, never really decays. The only thing that does decay is the coolant, the thermal paste, right? You need to replace that, and then pretty much the chip works just as fine as the day you bought it, with maybe a little bit of loss, if any. This means that once we get to the point where everything speeds up around 10,000 because refactoring is instant, right? The AI just does it. Now your Discord runs with 0 hitches. There's no problems. Whatever software you're using, right? Everything runs at whatever the theoretical near max optimization is of current tech that we know. This means that there's a significant amount of compute out there that is completely fine, and it could be used for anything. It's just required an optimization step. That's basically where the near future is, that like pretty much anyone's phone that they're using is perfectly fine for the software we'll need to put on it. It's just a silicone god. But anyways, beyond that though, there is the other aspect to where compute, it gets to the point where there's some really old graphics cards that are completely worthless now because they don't run anything anymore. But what happens when they can run stuff again? There's a lot of like compute just sitting around. No matter how inefficient it is now, it might become efficient again. So you can have like a bit of a implosion of compute, generally speaking.
You think it's more likely that that'll get utilized because I guess our like software evolves and it can run way more efficiently on the old hardware, or so it'll be utilized again, or that will just recycle the old stuff.
We'll probably we'll probably recycle the old stuff, but there will be certain things that are just kind of going to stick around, right? Depends what we're talking about. But the reason that we'll recycle the old stuff or just create the base level compute that you need, like compute will eventually get to the point where we know exactly how much compute your phone needs for most things that you're doing. And then we more or less give you like a ton of overhead, which is, probably current tier 15 iPhone, right? That's probably plenty of compute that you'll ever need. Unless we need to run every fucking AI locally on your phone, which I don't know why we would do that. But the point is you get to keep that phone or whatever, and it doesn't really matter if you upgrade it. It will run everything that phone will ever need to run. But the problem is that when it comes to especially enterprise level computing, it's better to just recycle the silicone, because you now have 1,000x, compute compared to something that was made 10 years ago, especially when you add in the potential for software. I was talking a little bit about this with Johnny It's kind of weird how many people don't really know a whole lot about it, but there's a lot of like software steps that are going to happen with AI that we don't really comprehend. And DLSS 3.5 is what NVIDIA is working on. Effectively, it's doing this thing where, by the way, I'm feedbacking on your mic, Johnny.
On mine?
Yeah.
Here, I can turn it down.
Yeah, if you could just do that a little bit. Anyways, where was I just at? Anyone got a bookmark? Come on. Need help.
DLSS
3.5, right? With the AI chips that are in NVIDIA, they utilize that part of the graphics card, which handles like I don't know exactly how that works, but there's a separate part of the chip that is the RTX, which is real time something. I wish I knew the acronym, but the point is, it has this separate part of the chip that can do basically AI inference, right? So DLSS 3.5 generates only 1 out of 8 pixels on your screen. So across the spectrum of your screen and the obvious grid, it only generates 1 out of each set of 8 pixels. And then it literally it looks at those that 1 pixel per 8 across the whole screen, the whole resolution, and then it makes up the rest near instantly of what it should look like, because it can tell what it looks like. So you're generating an eighth of what you used to have to generate.
Which, by the way, is how our eyes almost work. Not exactly like that, but like we have about 8K resolution per eye, I think, something like that. But our brain is actually producing much more of the visuals. Our entire like visual might be simulated. Who knows? We might be a vat. But our eyes are, it's like we only actually fully render like one little spot of our visual view. Everything else is basically like a like you can
basically
like
what I just described.
View, yeah, exactly. And it's way more efficient. And that's, I think, what is it?
They have the videos where
Unreal Engine 5 that pretty much does that too. They can render these like extremely complex, huge poly scenes and with extreme efficiency because they're only rendering like these like small portions. I can find a video on it. Really interesting.
So basically,
especially with your peripheral vision, there's some semi, I guess you'd say, like viral videos where they do famous people, and then you have to look at the middle, and as the famous people go by and the faces of them are on the left and the right, and you're looking at the middle, they become more distorted and twisted and horrific. They become really fucked up looking. And then you like look over at him, and it's just a normal person. It's just like Matt Damon, you know. It's just like it's like Will Smith. But like if you continue to stare at the middle, when those faces, the more they move through those faces, the less your brain is its simulation of what the faces look like
breaking down,
start to become more and more weird.
Now that you say that, when I remembered looking at that, it looks like the hallucination shit that goes on within image generation. Maybe we are in the simulation. Ooh. Anyways, so
I mean, I think that's the probable thing. Probably. We just look at it if we boil it down.
Who cares? But anyways, the thing where that works, that's how the eyes work. It makes sense, right? Like, so you don't need to make everything frame by frame. You can just infer the rest, and that's what we're doing. So there's probably degrees where that will extrapolate out to 1,000,000,001 things in software where instead of optimizing down that thing that's 10,000 times slower than it should be, we get like on a software level, just because of the technology we have hardware wise to do some sort of same system with 3.5, right? The DLSS, just spitballing here, but basically you can infer the rest of the software. It goes, okay, here's the boilerplate that should be in here, and it just runs it more efficiently, or whatever way it does, or maybe it gets to like a Gaussian shit where it just generates the image of what the software wants you to do. So it just all runs more efficiently. So instead of that 10,000 down to as fast as it should be, so you got a 10,000 increase, you get like hundreds of thousands times sped up of every little bit of software on everything you're using. And if you get that level of speed up, then you need significantly less compute. Basically, every software optimization that we do, this is the whole point about like Q-Star, right? Is that you now leverage your current silicon even more, significantly more. The something cool that AMD did recently is they effectively enabled a software update to all of their GPU fleet that makes them perform better, like significantly, like 20 to 40%, I think, across the whole fleet. So you could have a 10-year-old GPU that shit works better now from AMD, Radeon or whatever. It's that company. So that's the competitor to NVIDIA.
One of the first like custom builds I did around 2012 was on a AMD Radeon card, and those were pretty decent back then. I don't have it anymore, but yeah, I don't know. Do they allow for what you're saying in the future to be able to update, or right now they're doing software?
No, right now within their supported fleet, which goes back pretty far, there's an update for AMD. Like it's like I can't remember what it's called, but basically the games perform better. It's only with like a certain amount of games though. I think it's like 5,000 games or something that have this enabled. So it's not clear cut, but it's a thing. So the fleet has been improved on a software level because of improvements they made. That's a big example of a big company doing that. So you're probably eventually going to get it with other companies as well. Maybe that would be something that would be kind of sick if like AMD as a way to compete with Intel would be to by the way, the AMD processors are crazy these days over Intel for especially for certain game stuff, but for workstation stuff, it's crazy. I've always loved Intel for its single core performance because I play on mainly single core games, Valve software, right?
Lots of threads.
Yeah. Anyways, their performance now is crazy, but yeah, I could see them upgrading like chipset drivers so that suddenly that processor performs significantly better now. That would eventually be a thing that could be possible, especially with the because there's a billion and one people that talk about like people that are working with ChatGPT 4, right? With their programming are roughly anywhere from 2 times to like 5 times as efficient. They get a ton more work done, right? So this is at every layer of the software stack that all these software engineers are working in. All of them are to some degree, if they're not in a situation where they're unable to use proprietary code, right? Or they're, if they're using the enterprise version within their company, they can use any part of their code, and basically OpenAI is under legal obligation to not use it for fucking training. That would be the no, right? But every layer of the software stack that you can think of with all these software companies that run hardware and you name it, their engineers are using AI to help them code better and think out things. And It's not to the point where it can rewrite it, but it's helping people rewrite stuff. So everything about AI is an accelerating force on everything about AI and everything else. It's a self fulfilling like prophecy, like a feedback loop on everything.
Yeah, it's hard to predict where like the path that things will go when you reach like one like the point of exponential like rate of improvement, but two, um, yeah, rate of improvement. And what was the second thing I was going to say? Forgot.
Basically, we're definitely on an exponential path. The whole, everyone's seeing the line chart that goes straight up, right? You are here, right? That's, we're probably inching up that chart a little more, but I think a lot of people don't think that like this is gonna boom, but like I think people who say that like, oh, none of this is gonna boom, it's gonna be a very like linear thing that you see. It's like maybe your timeline's weird, like it's like because reaching singularity in 5 years is fucking boom to me, in my opinion. Because at some point you do reach that point where this becomes self-improving software. So an example of AI being self-improving right now is that GPT-4 is, I don't know if they're still scraping the internet, but it was scraping the internet in a more intelligent way with their scraper bots at OpenAI. That is it helping it retrain itself. It's just a lot of humans in the loop. Over time, there's less and less loops. Eventually, the AI is fucking retraining
Or they're
itself.
shorter. Yes. So that's the thing. One, not only does it get better, but two, yeah. So as we approach the knee in the exponential curve, it's harder to predict. I think it's harder to predict how it's going to happen, and also it gets more like not necessarily complex, but it gets further. It'll get further from our understanding of it, like how it like what its computes are actually doing. I think anyway. So then, yeah. So all those three things are make it weird to predict uh, how or when it'll actually like reach an exponent, like the when it'll peak, because of our understanding
when
of it
the
will probably
boom
go down.
happens as well.
Yep.
So the theory, everyone always talks about the classic doubling of a penny, right? Like that's effectively what you got going on here. Is we're probably at the 16th double or whatever. We're getting close.
Yeah, I think we're probably even earlier than that.
Maybe we're only at like 8 or something, but the point is we're real close. Maybe it's 2. We've only doubled once, but
It depends. I think also how you label your chart, like if like what your time scales are, because yeah, hard to tell.
what do you think? Like, you're kind of I see you like in the chats a decent amount, like kind of pushing back on stuff. I know you have like your opinions on like UBI and stuff. I don't want to talk about that, but what's your like general opinion on like singularity and stuff? Like, what do you kind of see as like the future of like people in general when it comes to this stuff? Are we just all cyborgs instantly? Like, what do you think?
Well, yeah. Well, I think there's definitely some cyborging. Yeah, it depends how deep you go into the term. Because one, we technically are like some form of cyborgs. We like first we
Mm.
got our information from other people, from communication with other people. Then we got, we were able to write down
To
some
a
stuff.
degree.
Yeah, so like now, like we'd look it up. Some, maybe we'd be able to call someone and share that information over the phones. Maybe
It's
not
like
the
how
exact.
often are you away from your phone, anyways?
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
how
I guess
far are
the
you away
only,
from the information? That's one. But then
I
as
guess
you get closer, it's like how do you like we have a limited bandwidth basically, but we're closer to the information, so we have easy access to it. So easy access, but our brains are limited to a certain amount of
we just
bandwidth.
don't have direct biological integration of technology. That's the only thing. As
Yeah.
far as like, if you were to in a vacuum, sort of look at a human being, and then what a singular individual can accomplish, and then give that person access to their own technology, what we can accomplish dramatically increases. So we're already augmented in a way. It's just not augmented in a physical way. Does that make sense? So from like a mental way, we're already sort of having access, interaction constantly with technology. From like a metaphysical perspective, we already are augmented in that way. We just don't have a direct biomechanical integration of that yet. And I think that's got to be really close. And I don't think that it's not something that I think is going to be, a yes or no. I think it's going to be, again, to a degree. So, because it's feasible that we could have, some sort of, I can't remember the movie, but where technology, we can do more organic based technology, because that's not something anyone's working on at all.
Yeah, I think there are some people doing research on that, because it's such a
Augment just through
taboo
DNA.
thing. I think a lot of it is under wraps. Yeah, I think a lot of genetic work stuff is actually under wraps, or even some of the life extension shit, just because of because one is privately funded, and two, like, yeah, it's just not probably good out in the public for now, while that stuff's being developed. But yeah, so I think in the nearer future we're gonna have like chip related stuff, like implants and that sort of thing. So it's like a further merge into maybe expanding our bandwidth, be able to compute in our capabilities. That's one. And two, there's going to be non-implanted things that are going to be able to help for sure. Like like wearables are going to get way better, and what they can do, whether it's like feedback, but also, yeah. So
Like,
yeah,
More or less omnipresent AI.
yeah,
like in the Avatar,
sure.
the film Avatar, how they have that fucking thing back there, and they fucking link in. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not something that's so out of the realm of possibility in the future. You know what I mean? That's not like, it's not completely crazy, right? Because it's just about getting electrical signals and currents, yeah, and then it's about being able to transmit those, and then have a way to encode and decode those in a way that our brain can process. Not that, yeah, the blue people, the big blue tall fucks, like that. And so that sounds fucking insane. Like if I was like, oh yeah, one day, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like nothing's out of the realm of we already are able to encode data. This right here, that is data being transmitted, and then it's being understood by and processed. So what's the difference between that, this touch sense, and then and then having something beyond that? So I think there's definitely two roots to that.
It's kind of funny is there's even like layers to our own. So you wouldn't even have to like necessarily you wouldn't have to necessarily turn us into computers. You could just optimize the human body. So
yeah, so that's
here's
the
a weird thing
thing
that I know about, right? So like with your hand, right? When you ball to make a fist, right? You when you try to open your hand, like with each finger or whatever, your hand has a process moment where when you're balling a fist or opening your hand or whatever, if you're trying to put one finger down or something like that, or one finger up, it thinks to put all fingers down at the same time, but then it goes, oh no, the brain is signaling that we're only putting one finger up or down, right? So there's an inefficiency there where your brain will it does a split second thing that you can't see, but it is trying to put all fingers down or all fingers up, but instead it realizes you only want one. That's why it's very hard for people to with their fingers like do certain things where they could put each one up and down and bend them in certain ways, just because there's overlapping wires there where it's inefficient. All of it's inefficient. As much as people talk about how efficient the brain is, which it is, but there's probably 1,000,000,001 inefficiencies that we just don't know about within our own brain that we'll eventually be able to just make better. Yeah. Basically, you could be completely human on every way, but with no computer advance, like we might not even have to just replace parts of your brain with like computer chips. It's just like, oh, we just biologically enhance you in a bunch of ways.
So that's where it's like a two-part thing. Merging with silicon is one thing, and that'll help you with extra compute. But then the biological part, if you're able to achieve both of those, the like reprogramming of genetic, or basically that's what it is, reprogramming of genetics, then you become more efficient at processing. So I'm not sure with biology how far you can actually, if you can edit it. I don't know how far you can actually increase compute, but I mean, you can certainly become much more efficient. So if you can achieve both, then you can become more efficient, and with the merger of silicon, you can get extra compute. So yeah, I think there's some potential there. But also, how do you test those things or simulate those things? Because you're obviously going to create like diseases and shit when you're, there's going to be like the testing is
actually, there's an answer to that, and it's what DeepMind's trying to achieve. It's now obviously this. What'd you say?
With the animals, partially.
No. So DeepMind is, they've obviously, AlphaFold, they can simulate protein foldings. There's also stacks built on top of this with companies that work with NVIDIA specifically, where they do other things like predicting other bits of protein, not just protein folding, but also like what proteins bind to, you name it. So this is all
synthesis.
Yes. So this is all like useful stuff for trying to generate medicines and stuff. But effectively, you can simulate protein folding, right? You can tell how it's going to fold. I'm not a proper expert on like how all this works biologically, but the theory in compute is, I believe the CEO of DeepMind, I forget his name, of course, because I'm wonderful with names, but he said on a podcast that he effectively wanted to get to the point where eventually we could simulate a cell. So yes. Yeah, Demis. I watched the whole podcast with Lex, but effectively get to the point where you can simulate a cell, and then obviously extrapolate that up to now you're simulating an organ, and then eventually you can simulate a human at some point, or just even just simulating a cell might be enough to do extreme things with our biology. But eventually you could take a clone of your DNA in one way or another and simulate your brain, and then go in and modify it 1 billion times and effectively create an agent or a virus of sorts to replicate within that person's brain and modify it accordingly to make it more efficient. So effectively, this is like the cure to all disease at some point, is like we just simulate parts of your body or your whole body and pen test it with a ton of different diseases that are like made, or viruses that are made to like carry stuff into your body to modify it in whatever way. So effectively, we could make immunities to all sorts of things, or even just enhancements.
We might be diving into a whole new subject here, but like we were saying, we can make old hardware more efficient, and so it might still have some uses. I think the model for a long time, or the foreseeable future, will be a lot of people can compute locally, and that's gotten way more efficient and more powerful. But there's always going to be some sort of data center sort of compute that people are going to be able to tap into, whether they train big models and the devices run some inference version of that. So for what were we saying right before that? It tied into that.
Well, I was tying in like just that eventually you have so much compute that you can simulate organs and stuff.
Oh yeah, so we're probably going to have some sort of we're not necessarily going to have to test the pieces of your like genetics or whatever in some sort of like lab or whatever in real time. We're probably going to, whatever hardware we have, or if we have implants, whatever, that's probably going to be running computations and seeing, well, one, probably inefficiencies on the, there's a thumbs up thing, they're going to be able to see inefficiencies off the get in real time. So that's like a micro program that's seeing where it can improve. And two, it'll be able to do real time testing for like the disease stuff. So I don't know, depending how complex the diseases are, maybe you can completely eradicate them from the get. If you keep getting more and more efficient and it's always improving, then maybe the diseases aren't even a problem at all.
That's kind of an interesting thing to think about is that
or finding solutions on the go without even you like, yeah.
The human body, like disease thing, right? It goes from medicine and it just becomes a cyber security problem. Your body, like,
where's John McAfee when you need him, you know?
Oh God, yeah. but that's effectively what we do. We make our bodies not only, basically, you make us bulletproof because you can create a trillion fucking novel viruses that have never happened before, simulate the pen test on your body, and keep modifying until you have organs that are impenetrable. You know, a lot of people talk about eventually somebody figures out how to mass produce graphene and you wrap your heart in it. So nobody can stab you because we now have the ability to, modify ourselves to such a degree that humans kind of become unkillable as a biological.
Or just grow like some scaly skin.
Well, this is the theory that a lot of people have, is that like at some point we're creating Krypton, where everyone's just super and running around and doing shit. You can fly somehow. We figured that out. I don't know how. I'm not saying I know how. I'm just saying that there's degrees to like us becoming absolute fucking superhuman. Grow back limbs, you name it. You cut a limb off of one of us, eat a couple cheeseburgers, you've pulled your limb back over a few days. That's all.
Cheeseburgers. It's just like some
raw milk if you want it to go faster.
Liquid pods.
You get the point, though. We turn ourselves into like super starfish. Stuff just grows back. Doesn't matter. You can't kill each other. Hearts wrapped in graphene. Why don't you like that one, Johnny? You okay over there?
I don't want anything wrapped in graphene.
You don't want to wrap things in graphene? It's really
no. Just get more flesh. Just more flesh around it. Just big lard flesh thing. Big, like Baron Harkonnen from the fucking Dune. There's this big fucking. Have me fly around.
Have you ever heard the theory that like if you put a human in space, like zero gravity, for a really long extended period of time, we effectively at some point kind of become fish, where like our bones just keep shrinking. So it's like you were to evolutionarily like put humans in 0G and give them all they needed to be fed or whatever, like their body would lose all of its bones almost. You would just kind of be a blob that floats around over time.
That's sexy.
Basically, the human body is completely capable of doing that now, where over a period of generations, your bones just wouldn't matter. Your body would have no reason to generate the bones. You get your blob. That's possible.
I like my people boneless. Do you like human bone in or boneless? Oh, hell no. I'm not the boneless person. Oh, no.
I actually listened to the podcast with Rogan recently of the guy who came out with he was the whistleblower for the UFO thing. It was kind of weird to like listen to him because he seems very unaware of like where AI is currently. I don't blame him though. He's just kind of a government guy, but he more or less is like talking about like I I think the guy was a futter. I mean, he could just be a government operative to like spread disinfo. It's entirely possible, but the whole point is like he's claiming very heavily that there are UFOs that we have, and there's also like aliens that we have, and other governments apparently have them, and you name it. This is like a serious guy who worked at a pretty high level clearance, one of 30 people to know certain things, to level of like classified, right? Extremely high level security clearance. And he decides to blow the whistle. We got fucking ships, people, right? It's weird where I don't know what to believe on that, right? Obviously, like people are saying it, it's possible. I don't think so overall. Until one talks to me, I'm not going to believe that shit. But
I'm not even going to believe it then.
But it would. Well, I mean, yeah, eventually it's going to get to the point where you can just kind of simulate an alien. It doesn't matter.
It like comes up to me, I'm like, no, that's bullshit. You're trying to trick me.
This is a deep.
I don't care who they send. I'm not paying my taxes.
Anyways, so the point I'm making,
I'm not paying.
Yeah, the old joke is that if the aliens come and they start repeating all of your government's doctrine, they're not aliens. They're just simulations.
Pay tax.
Yeah, what have you guys seen the speech to speech with 11 Labs? This
sounds
is
familiar.
A recent
Did
release.
you say aliens come down and goon you out in the fucking chat?
Jesus. So recently 11 Labs has now released speech to speech, and you can just record yourself talking, and it'll take every inflection of something that you're saying and do it in whatever clone voice you did. So someone proved the point basically very well with a podcast clip of Rogan and Elon talking to each other. And basically he just cloned Elon's or Joe Rogan's voice and then did the little clip of Elon talking, right? You feed it to the model. It now takes the I'm feeding back in your mic again, by the way, Johnny. But anyways, mute when you're not talking, Johnny. Help me out here. Wake up, Johnny.
I'm not saying anything.
Johnny, it's time for school. Anyways,
I'm not talking.
No, it's feeding back in your mic. Me talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I will fight you to the death. Okay. Anyways, what I was saying is, fuck. What was I saying?
Joe Rogan Elon clip.
Okay, so you feed Elon Musk talking into the model, and then it's got a clone version of Joe Rogan talking, and now it's almost fucking perfect. It feeds that clip and now clones Joe Rogan's voice over everything Elon says. Perfect inflection, lip syncs directly to it. You don't even have to do any work. It now just sounds like Joe Rogan is saying all the things that Elon's saying. It is so close to perfect, I cannot describe. And it's because instead of you just generating via text, it can now listen to your voice and figure out all your inflections of how you said something within this new voice.
This is one of the somewhat unexpected areas because it's I mean, it seems a bit more simple than full-blown video like simulation. That's pretty good. So I think that audio I think is one of the things that's been kind of slowly progressing. Obviously, it seems like we've been seeing more progressions in other areas, but I think it's one of the things that is going to get nailed down like pretty good, pretty quick, and it's going to come out of the blue. I mean, it's already getting pretty good. And one of the last things is ads. A lot of people are making they're training voices like Joe Rogan and whatever. The videos are but that they're like then the people are like pitching their own products. They're making ads and pitching their own products, and like Joe Rogan's voice, like vetting their product and shit like that.
Yep.
Like,
There's a ton of scam things where it's someone pretending to be Rogan endorsing some supplement brand or whatever, and then you go buy their supplements because you think Rogan's endorsing them. They're not. It's a big
sell the
thing.
most ridiculous shit. Like fucking, fuck, I don't know, Joey Diaz asshole dust fucking supplement.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, well, there's even like Mr. Beast. This is one of the big news stories. Is people cloning Mr. Beast's voice and doing like deep fake stuff.
Saw a bunch of crypto Elon ones too.
Yep, crypto Elon stuff is way more.
Wait, those weren't real?
No.
Oh God!
You looked a little depressed. Something happened. Johnny's been fucked.
Johnny's bankrupt. He's been waiting for a call back from someone for a while now.
I can't believe I've lost my entire income on Splooge coin.
You didn't buy Cum Rocket at the bottom? What the fuck, man? Anyways, so what was I just saying? Oh, there was a clip of a Twitch streamer, right, who installed a plugin for World of Warcraft, and it's like classic World of Warcraft. And there's all these, I've only like tried World of Warcraft, never played it, but you have all these NPCs that you can talk to, and they have a text of like whatever you're saying, and it's just like a classic RPG. You click through the options and chat with the NPC. It's all red text, right? So you would have to read this. And, a ton of RPGs out there exist where nobody pays attention to the story at all because you have to read it. And who wants to read while you're playing a video game? Usually that's like the lore nerds, like they love that shit. But he installed a plugin where he walked up to one of the NPCs, and it was clearly just like whoever made this whole thing had various clones of all the NPCs, clones of like a voice for the NPC, and recorded like each of these, basically like was able to like, I think throughout much of the game has the voices just nailed down where it reads out the text, right? And this guy was so shocked by like the text to speech ability, and he goes, "Holy shit!" Like, he was just shocked at like, "Holy shit!" Like, I'm worried about voice actors right now. Like, what do they do?
Right?
Because you would have never had. It would have been way too expensive, prohibitively so expensive to voice out all those things, but now they are. Now they're all voiced out. All the orcs can fucking talk now, right? It's funny. But the problem is the technology is so good that I think the only way voice actors are going to make any money is licensing their voice. But that's even harder to do because if I want your voice or something close to it, I can simulate your voice along with other voice. I can pair you with Morgan Freeman and create a synthetic voice that is superior to both in whatever way, right? Johnny, you're muted. What are you staring at me for?
Why, Lex?
He's mesmerized at this new game I'm developing. It's called Skyrimmed.
Shut the fuck up.
I fucking hate you.
Okay. So, yeah, but basically text to voice and now speech to speech is almost completely nailed. It is so close that it's incredible. I saw this, there are these Twitch streamers that they go into games where they like kind of role play or whatever, and it's important that nobody knows that it's them. And now these live voice changers are getting so good that you just speak and you speak in a different voice now. And then it's even down to like if someone knows how you speak, right? So they can recognize you. GPT can so quickly just change your mannerism where it just changes the words around of what you just said. And now it's literally like a different person's talking, and it has no idea. Nobody will ever have any idea it's you. It's using
This is
different
just
words.
a temporary problem while we're working on a telepathy with the chips, or we won't be talking in the future anyway. So
Yeah, I guess so. Like it's what is the world like when nobody talks? It's awfully quiet, but
no, well, you'll still hear them. That's the thing, though. Technically, and
Well-
the thing is, like, speech is incredibly inefficient. So, like, for entertainment purposes, that's fine for TV, but like, yeah, speech is very inefficient. Like, it's not very detailed. It's not very descriptive. And how many like if you play a game of telephone with like with actual information, then the more people you go down, like that gets degraded. You know what I mean? Like you can portray completely accurate pictures from person to person to person without like speech, because
Your Wi-Fi router is going to be able to look at your larynx and your esophagus, and then it's going to be able to take a 3D model of your vocal cords, and it's going to simulate with 100% accuracy what you sound like anyway. So
you think you're safe by not talking. Some guy's going to hack into your router. He's going to hack into your fucking voice box, your larynx, and he's just going to expose the fuck out of you. Just the future's grim.
that's what I'm going to say in court when they're like, "Did you say all this stuff against the government?" I'm like, "That guy hacked my voice box.
Honestly,
it wasn't me."
Like, every bit of like technological advancement, I get fatigued. Like there's no like, okay, we've talked a little bit about like the phthalates, right, of like plastic, right? Where at some point you're just naked eating raw meat with wooden shoes on, like you're like hunting deer by yourself and eating it, right? That's all you can eat, right? Because you don't want the plastic in you. Because
no, you don't need to hunt. You just have your was it Boston Dynamics dog go and kill stuff?
Yeah, but he's got plastic hooves, so it's like, you know, he touched the meat. It's spoiled now. It's got the plastic in it. The point is, it becomes so ridiculous to actually try to avoid plastic, because even if you're like a, you know, like one of the Rogan type, like carnivore diet enjoyer, right? All your meat's wrapped in plastic when you buy it. It's cut when you get it from the butcher. It's cut usually on a type of plastic fucking cutting board. Right? There's plastic in fucking everything. It is unavoidable.
I think there's a fix to that. If let's say we can do genetic stuff and we can like
that's the fix, by the way. That's the only fix there is.
Well, not
everything else is unreasonable.
If you look at other materials, though, like obviously there's like strength properties and whatever, but we can make like genetic like worms and shit, because like for example silkworms, they can make really strong like silk threads, and they can make like full blown clothes out of that. So just like we use like plastics and recycle, I think recycling like the way recycling happens will completely change, because we'll probably be able to create materials that we didn't even know we could make by just making like these enslaved insects
now
genetically
we'll have
modified.
Extreme phthalates that we haven't imagined yet.
True.
Yeah, to go on further with that, right? It's the same thing with like privacy, where I try to keep a decent amount of things like private about myself, but I see that as just a temporary thing. Like I will be the last generation to enjoy that there were some things about me that people don't know about me. Honestly, because I fucking forgot them. Right?
They're gonna come into my router and they're gonna know exactly what my asshole looks like.
It's
they're gonna send micro drills. They're gonna come
simulation of my asshole. And there's nothing you can do about it. I guess in some ways that kind of destroys. If everyone's already 100% completely debased, does that like mean that no one becomes as such?
I mean, I guess so, but like something we've talked about before here is like, how long till the NSA realizes they have a fuck ton of data and could train a model, and it's a model trained on everyone's nudes, basically, or whatever they do. It's a real thing. They have.
God, I'd hate to have that job,
dude. That is the real goon cave. The fucking the NSA screens. You got many screens up. Dude, you got to think these days, because there's no way that program's not still running, right? And it's collecting several things. They're like, the Snapchat ones must be wild. All the data they're collecting. It's just
my God,
nude
please.
after nude after nude. It's crazy.
That's all it's used for. And I think on that note, before we devolve anymore, I'm quite tired and it's getting quite late for me.
Okay. Yes, we can. Birds aren't real. We can end it there.
But once we start talking about nudes, I'm not. It's not a good rabbit hole for me. Like, it's just gonna get worse. We're gonna the word goon has been used at least 3 times in the past 10 minutes, and then that's not good because we know what's gonna happen.
You're going to start gooning? Like, what? It sounds like a warning.
Yeah, we triggered
Start.
him.
We triggered him.
We triggered his pattern.
Start. What do you mean start?
He's about to start fucking edging. That's what I mean.
Buddy, I've been edging and gooning the entire time.
I've been on the edge this entire. Oh, I'm just waiting for someone to say jackpot.
If my code word hits, it's over. It's over. I treat this like it's 8th grade math class, and I'm always edging.
This week's podcast. Thank you for coming, guys. Well, fuck, I didn't mean to say that. I'm going to stop right there. No, thank you.
What was that?
I didn't mean it. I didn't say it. Okay, good night and goodbye, gentlemen. Thank you for the chat.
Good evening.